Okay, so I introduced myself to you earlier, but I'll just, again, since you heard from a lot of people, I'm Maya. I use she, they pronouns. So I'm just going to be asking you any questions. Like Dr. C said, if you're uncomfortable with anything, just tell us, and we can move on. But they're pretty basic for now. But just give us as much information as you feel comfortable. Really, the most details is going to be the best for us. Okay, so first question, just please introduce yourself with your names.
I'm Chava, and I go by she, and I've been an out lesbian for since I was 30, so I came out late.
That's wonderful. Yeah, awesome, thank you.
I'm Beverly and I use the pronouns they, them, and I have been queer since I came out of the womb.
I feel that. So you guys kind of answered a little bit of this, but just how do you identify? This can include your sexuality, gender, anything else that's really important to you, religion, anything you find important.
Well, I'm really polysexual, and I fall in love with a person rather than a gender, and I mothered 2 children.
So you said, I think you said earlier that you've been an out lesbian. So do you find polysexual and lesbian to be identities you can hold together?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And in fact, I'm not even real sure I'm a lesbian anymore because my partner is a transgender person, so I'm not sure what kind of label that makes me.
It's changed as you've experienced new things.
Absolutely, and as the world changed, because the world is really different now than it was back in the 80s.
Any better?
Well, I identify as queer. I don't identify as a lesbian anymore. I did for many years because there weren't a lot of options.
Yeah.
Had I had the options as a very young person that are available to people now, I probably would have transitioned, but that was not available to me. So we identified as a lesbian couple for many years, including raising 2 children together. And it's been in recent years that I've really been looking at my own identity and realized that I am transgender, but I'm not going to do any medical modifications at my age. It's not worth it to me.
Do you remember about the time you stopped identifying as a lesbian? What year or age do you think that would be at?
Within the last 10 years, probably.
Okay, so thank you guys so much. That was super informative. We're gonna move on to kind of getting more into the activist questions. So what has been your experience with activist organizations? This can be in Arkansas, in Fayetteville, or outside of Arkansas as well.
Well, for me, when I moved to Fayetteville when I was 19, we went to a gathering at what was the Women's Center at the university. And I had come from Little Rock, and you would think there would be more queer folks down there, but I didn't know any lesbians except the woman I moved here with. And we walked into this meeting, and there was 30 lesbians in there, and we thought, God, we've died and gone to heaven. This was amazing. And so I was 19, and so the university decided to close the Women's Center because there was too many Dykes there. They didn't like that. So I was with 3 other women, and we formed a group called the Razor Dykes. You have to understand the football team is the Razorbacks.
That's awesome.
So that really pissed off the administration. We tried to get funding, and of course we couldn't. And it was a whole series of things. And it was kind of the end of my activism, really, because I met Chava not too long after that, and then we had kids, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah. So you said you were 19. About what year was that?
I moved here in 1976.
1976. And it wasn't with Chava. It was.
No, it was no. We've been together a long time, but not that long.
Now, because I came out in the Land Dyke movement, and I was in New York, and my high school friend was involved in Land Dyke community in in the New England, and she said, come up and visit me. And I went up there and visited her, and I saw all these strong, beautiful women, and they were building a house. And so I joined in, and we decided to travel together and visit women's communities across the country, and find one that we wanted to live in. So at that time, before internet or magazines or anything, the way that we found each other was there was a record company called Olivia Records, and they were producing lesbian music, and so we got a list of their distributors in various towns, and we would go and call the person and say, can you tell us where we can sleep on a floor somewhere? And so we traveled that way. And when we came to Fayetteville, they were very involved in women's rights, the ERA, working with people of color, working on class issues especially, and trying to understand who we were in the wider world. And so this was such an active place that we just stayed. We never made it to California. And we explored various land communities here, and there were several. And some of them were separatist communities that totally didn't want anything to do with men, and were working on issues like dealing with past trauma, past rape, past abuse, recovering. In those days, there was no battered women's shelter. They didn't have domestic violence places, and so we had a series of homes safe houses that people could stay with, and some of the land Dyke communities would take women with children who were leaving abusive situations, and Beverly and I had a couple people staying with us various times.
So what was about that time period that you started being involved with the land Dyke community? You said in New York?
So that was 77.
Okay. And when did you make your way to Arkansas?
78.
Okay, so this was just about
I've been
a year.
here since 78, yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. That was super interesting. So you guys made your way to Arkansas, and kind of the next question is just, when did you get involved with what's called Spinster Haven, now like Eldertree is a branch of it, this organization? What year, what time of your life did you find yourself involved in that?
Well, we started going to the meetings way back in, 84 maybe?
Before that even. Maybe.
Yeah, 83, 84. At that time, the Spinster Haven had gotten a grant from something like my grandmother's bequest. And I mean, I could look it up and tell you what it was, but so they were talking about buying land, and the idea originally was that there would be a community of people living rurally, and there would be it would be a place for retirement, because nobody wanted to think about getting old in a nursing home surrounded by people that weren't like you, and it was actually a really bad idea, but we didn't know that at the time. We were pretty excited about it. But then they started talking about all these rules, like whether there was going to be allowed electricity, because, in order to create electricity, you have to pollute the environment, and whether, men were going to be allowed on the land. And that was a big deal, because Beverly and I knew we wanted to have kids, and we might have a boy, and we wanted to love that boy. We wanted everybody to love that boy. So we kind of stopped being involved at that point. They bought land, and you'll hear from some of the other women about that.
Well, I would just add that this was a lot of women in their 20s and 30s who had no idea what it was going to be like to be elderly and retire 50 or 60 miles from the nearest medical facility. It was really not a good idea at all. But none of us knew it because we were all young and healthy. The other.
Thank you guys so much. What does, like, what it or did at the time did Spinster Haven mean to you when you started getting involved in it? Like, what was, to you, what was kind of the goal of it?
To have a safe place where you could be yourself. Because, I mean, I was a school teacher and I had to be totally in the closet and just not be my authentic self at all. And to have organizations like Spinster Haven meant that you could be yourself and have other people around that understood that.
And I love the idea of a retirement community. That sounded great to me, and I always, at that time I lived in Fayetteville. We both lived in Fayetteville, and I wanted to be in the country, so, you know, it was a perfect idea for us, but now I realize it wasn't feasible.
Yeah. Wonderful. Beverly, if you just speak up just a little bit,
Okay.
because the mic's right here, just
Okay.
so we make sure it catches your voice. We just don't want to go back and hear it and be like, we can't hear or hear them. I'm very sorry. So thank you guys so much. So at the time, did it provide anything for you? I know you said you guys kind of separated from it, but before that, did it provide resources for you?
Mm-hmm. Sure. You could go to a bar, but you couldn't really meet people at a bar. You couldn't really meet people at disco. It was too loud. So the only ways to meet people were through being part of a community, part of a organization, part of some activist group.
Wonderful, thank you.
I can't say it meant much to me at all. So
You can get met a little bit more to Chava than to you.
probably.
Yeah.
I mean, all I remember is just going to a few meetings, and then we just kind of dropped out of it. And then, as the years went by, occasionally we would hear a call for everybody, please come out and you know, mow the yard and trim the bushes and work out here. But we had our own lives going on, and we didn't have time to go out there and spend a couple of days working. So I don't think we ever did that, did we?
Well, we went to work days at Ola.
At Ola, but not
Yeah.
at Spinster Haven.
Yeah, so there was another established women's community that had more money, and we would go help out with them, and go to big Thanksgiving potlucks and rituals, pagan New Age rituals.
Were these like affiliated communities at all?
Oh yeah. I mean, everybody was in everybody else's bed,
Literally?
so to speak. Well, yeah, that too. But yeah, I mean, we all knew each other, and we all, you know, interacted. And I mean, some people weren't into the pagan ritual things, and others were. Some people weren't into NOW, and others were into working with the Democratic Party and being in NOW and that kind of thing. I mean, you know, and also the war in Iraq. I mean, there was a lot of anti-war stuff going on too. And then there was also environmental stuff. I mean, you know, there was bigger issues that a lot of women contributed to.
So about the time you were working, you kind of went and were involved more in Ola. Was that during like the 90s?
Mm-hmm, definitely. Yep.
Well,
Yep. And Ola welcomed our children. Yeah.
some people.
Well, yeah, most of them. Most of them were pretty nice.
To backtrack just a little bit, Ola was forming about 1980. They started having meetings and to discuss purchasing land for a land community. And we were involved with that at the beginning. And then Hava mentioned all the rules associated with Spinster Haven. My memory is that it was all the rules associated with OLA, the electricity, and can you have men ever on the land, and certainly no male children were going to be allowed to live on the land, and we dropped out of that at that point too. So that was probably, I don't know, 81, 82. I think they probably bought OLA around 82, 83, along in there.
Yeah, that was
And
not
it's-
planned as a retirement community.
No, that's just a
Yeah.
women's land community. And it's out in the same area where Spinster Haven was.
Wonderful. Thank you guys so much. I'm gonna move on. You guys have kind of answered a couple of the questions. So I know you mentioned that you're not a separatist, but and I haven't asked that from you, Hava. But to you, what does separatism mean? Like, your definition of it.
Current or past?
I would like to hear both. Like, how's it changed?
Yeah.
Okay, well, back in the day, it meant that it was women that didn't want men around in any capacity whatsoever. And they were pretty anti-male. Now the separatist community, which there is one, is not only anti-male, they're very anti-trans.
Separatism?
Separatism, yes. I think at first women really needed to separate themselves from men to find out who we were as people. Because, I mean, for millennia, we had been, the word woman comes from man. And all the Christian stuff that goes with women being subservient, we had to separate ourselves from men in order to find out who we were. And so the 70s were full of consciousness-raising groups, women examining their bodies, finding out that there was a huge variety of bodies that were not seen in Playboy, and learning who we were. And that kind of separatism was very important for women to recognize each other as fully developed people. And then separatism became more of getting the patriarchy away from things that we felt were important. They talk about gaslighting now. They talk about mansplaining. We didn't have those words, but that's what we were trying to get away from. And so it became important to have our own organizations and to withdraw from the rest of the world, so to speak. But now I think separatism means more each individual group settles in too much to their own group and stops being part of a wider community. And so I don't see that it helps anything. I think that it actually hurts because we can't all get along,
Thank you guys so much. Thank you for sharing your experiences with that. So kind of what was the political climate in this area in Fayetteville and Arkansas in relation to women and LGBTQ people when Spinster Haven was formed kind of in those 80s?
Well, Fayetteville is the liberal core of Arkansas. We're different than everywhere else in Arkansas. Northwest Arkansas is the blue part of the state. So for a long time, we've had a mayor who was very LGBTQ friendly, and so when Spinster Haven first got this house, 6 years ago, really Fayetteville was in a very friendly, liberal place. When I first came here in '78, Well, the university wasn't really happy about having queer people. There were no, there was no officially sanctioned queer group. There, like there was still the feeling of the NOW and the Democratic Party people that they would prefer we weren't part of their organization, especially if we were going to wear our comfortable clothes and not look like them. And so there was still that going on. There's also the fact that some of the groups were a lot more open about their sexuality. That made a lot of people uncomfortable if their sexuality was kinky.
I would agree with all of that. I would say that unfortunately Northwest Arkansas has gotten much more conservative over the years. I would say in the 70s and 80s this was a pretty liberal area, and I would not consider it to be so anymore. It is true Fayetteville has a wonderful mayor, but things have gotten considerably more conservative.
Yeah, we blame Walmart.
You blame Walmart?
Well, they keep bringing more people in, and they're all these urban people.
No, I don't know that. It's Walmart's fault.
Okay.
The whole country's gotten more conservative, I think,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if we lose our mayor, things are going to change here.
Thank you guys. So would you say that Spinster Haven or Eldertree or the organization as a whole has changed over time? Is it pretty similar to when you guys left it, or?
Well, when we left it originally, it was just a piece of land way out in the country, and now it's this house in town. There's still lesbians fighting with each other over all kinds of things, so that hasn't changed.
It's true, but it's really one of the few places where people can meet each other without alcohol and without having to pay money. And that's, I think, really important. I think disabled and elderly women to be able to find each other and hang out together, that is very important to a lot of people, especially during times of.
All right. Okay, so the last question for me, and then we're going to move on to Dr. C. That's what we call her, Dr. C. It's just, what's your most influential memory with Eldertree or Spinster Haven?
Or activism.
Or just activism in Arkansas?
Well, I'll go first. My most significant memory is the continuation of the monthly potluck, and how sometimes it's been a slam poetry potluck, sometimes it's been a potluck where we had swimming, sometimes it's been a potluck where we had music performances, and always the social aspect of it was always what I loved.
I guess the most memorable thing for me is raising children in Northwest Arkansas. Us as being a lesbian couple, identifying that way at that time, and some of the support that we encountered, and also a lot of the challenges that we encountered. It was a struggle in a lot of ways, but also the best thing that ever happened in my life. So.
You guys were telling me earlier that your kids now have children of their own, and you said you
Grandy.
were a Grandy and Grandma.
But she's Hava, actually.
Yeah,
Hava? You're just Hava?
everybody's Hava.
She was Hava to our children when they were growing up.
Yeah,
too,
and
so.
she was mommy.
Yeah.
So, is that also kind of a similar experience being like queer grandparents? Is it?
Well, it's a whole lot easier now than it was 35 years ago.
Yeah.
Much easier.
Yeah. And in some ways, we were more accepted by the hippie community than the lesbian community, which was interesting to me. I didn't expect that.
I would say that we were on the fringes of a lot of different communities. We were on we homeschooled our children. We never sent them to public school, and So we did send them to a hippie school out in the next county, and we were sort of accepted there and sort of not in the lesbian community. Was very excited when we were going to have babies, and as soon as they're actual babies, they're no longer excited about it because they have diapers and cry and all sorts of things. They're children. So we were sort of some ways on the edge of the lesbian community. We were on the edge of the pagan community. We were on the fringe of the Jewish community. I mean, just a lot of different fringes. But we lived way out in the woods, so we didn't come to town that often either.
So what was around, what time did you guys have, or what year was it that you guys had your kids?
Irene was born in 86, Martin was born in 89.
89.
What method you guys used to have kids back then?
Oh,
We stood out on the street and held out a bottle and said, "We'll work for sperm." We used anonymous donors, and we did it all ourselves. There was no doctors involved
Did you-
in it.
we asked our heterosexual couple friends to donate their husbands. So we would get the wife excited
Yeah.
about it, and so she would help out. And some of them,
We have some great stories.
yeah, and of course, we had to be very secret about it because I think it was illegal.
It was illegal.
Yeah, and so we would rent a motel room. Once we lived out in the country, we rented a motel room in town. We'd come in, the guy would come with the sperm. We'd stay for an hour and then leave, and we always wondered what they thought of us.
One of the funny stories is when we were still living in Fayetteville and we were inseminating for our first child. We got the phone call, it's ready. So we go and we run and we jump in the car and we drive a block down the road and have a flat tire. And of course, sperm has to be kept at body temperature. It can't change much.
And
And so we had to run back to the house and get in the truck and then drive out.
Yeah, we talked to the men and said, we don't want a father, we don't want anybody who is going to take over, but if you want to, get to know the kids, that's fine, but we're the parents. And they all agreed to that, and about 50% of the people we asked for sperm said no, and a lot of them just didn't want to be part of that kind of situation. And then so the kids, when they were born, we didn't know who sperm it was. We had more than one sperm.
We
They
had 4
didn't know.
donors for each
Yeah.
child.
And a couple were for both kids, and some were different. And they've never asked us. They had a family. They had 2 parents.
Did each of you carry one of your children, or did one?
No, I carried them both.
You carried both? You were like, no.
Yeah, and so,
No, but I got the sperm where it needed to be.
Oh! I
That's
mean,
right.
until
I
Dr.
did my
Steve-
part.
Yeah, very important, very important.
Good.
Well, we really went through it all together because I went to all the doctor appointments with her, and we did all the
We insisted on everything,
everything
being
to
our
get
way.
together.
Yeah,
The only thing we couldn't do is have both names on the birth certificate because that was illegal. So
yeah.
Did you ever get any questions from doctors, or because you said it was illegal at the time? So did you? Just,
Yeah.
the doctor that we went to, we did go. We had a midwife and a doctor both for our first child. The doctor was recommended by folks in the community who said he was cool, and he was. He never asked anything about it.
Yeah.
So
And I think people were very uncomfortable with it, but we were just so insistent on it that it was just the way it was going to be. We were scared at first because it's so illegal to have 2 parent, and she couldn't adopt the kids without me giving up custody. So we did go to a lawyer and tried to get everything on paper, but it could have not counted in court if anything had happened to us. If one of our parents, for example, had objected, which both of them did, it could have been bad, but luckily it wasn't.